we had a lot of information to give to you as it related to educational equity. And so we're going to move our meeting around to make the presentation first, and then we'll circle back with our committee members and the information that they want to share with you this evening. And so with that, I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Leah Owens, who is the committee chairperson for our education committee.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone
Good evening.
is doing well. So let's get into it. So tonight, our topic is intentional and negligent failure, anti-Black racism, bullying, and special education at the Newark Board of Education. So just by that topic title itself, you know that we are going to be discussing some serious issues, but it is for the benefit of our children. And so we have to discuss it if we're going to be able to resolve these issues. So first, I just want to give a little bit of background in terms of particularly special education in the Newark Board of Education, and then we'll introduce our guests. So the Newark Board of Education, formerly known as Newark Public Schools, the public school district in Newark, has always had an interesting, if you will, relationship with special education. As a large urban public school district, we have many children who are labeled with special needs. There's a whole conversation about the over labeling of Black boys in particular. So some of that conversation may come up tonight, but we do have to say that we do have some schools, some programs that are doing well by students with special needs. Folks may not know, but we actually have 2 schools dedicated to this population, John F. Kennedy School and also New Jersey Regional Day School. And there are also programs around the district inside different schools that are able to serve some of our children very well, right? Children with special needs. However, if we're not serving all children well, then we need to stop and have a conversation, because that is always the goal. And so with that being said, the district actually was, and I think actually continues to be part of a lawsuit from 2012, right, 11 years ago, called MA versus Newark Board of Education. And in that lawsuit, many families with children with special needs brought up the allegations against the district that the district and its employees and staff were not following the protocols when it comes to identifying students and making sure that their individual education plans are created and followed according to federal guidelines. And so the district was found guilty of that and put on a plan that they had to actually submit procedural reports every year. And so in the beginning, it certainly was rocky. It's gotten a little bit better, but we still have rampant issues around the district when it comes to IEPs. So that's some of the conversation that we'll be having tonight. So with that being said, I do want to introduce our speakers for this evening, and I see they both have their cameras on. So first, we're going to have Safir Jenkins as one of our speakers. He is I lost your title there. Chief, tell me again. I don't know why it's not written here. Chief Affairs Officer, Public Affairs Officer. There,
Yes.
thank you. For the Newark CPAC, which CPAC stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Council. He is also the president of Optimum Human Centered Solutions. And just real quick, Safir, we have some questions within the branch of your credentials after your name. Could you just quickly tell us what SPHR stands for, as well as CPP?
Yes, that's just the Senior Professional of Human Resources. In that I also am Vice President and Head of Human Resources at a large physical therapy company.
you. Thank you very much. And our second guest speaker, I'm not sure if our third one is here, is Nancy Erica Smith, Esquire of Smith Mullen PC. Did you want to say hello and good evening?
Hello, good evening. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, I see our third speaker. We have Brenda Scott, who is president of the Secondary Parent Council within the Newark Board of Education. Good evening, Brenda.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here also.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna start off in a conversation with Safir and Brenda about the state of special education at the Newark Board of Ed. So if you could please, in just a couple of minutes, first just tell us about your organization and some of its current initiatives, what you're focusing on. So Safir, would you like to start us off, please?
Absolutely, and thank you very much. The Newark CPAC, like many other special education parent advisory groups around the country, and particularly around New Jersey, often focus our efforts primarily in leading initiatives aimed at advocating for the rights of students with disabilities and their families, providing resources and support for those families, and promoting what's most important tonight, inclusive education. We organize workshops, we work through training sessions, providing resources and tools for parents and families to give them the support needed to navigate the system and effectively advocate on behalf of their own children. We also provide opportunities for respite, whereby we have Saturday meetings, giving them some wellness support, things like massages and other wellness activities, while giving childcare so that they do have some breaks from the normal day-to-day activities that they are typically overwhelmed with. Right now, we're focusing our efforts in doing our report out for the previous school year, in that we're gathering all of our data, and through that process, we write up our reports for the purpose of identifying the challenges systemically that exist within special education services at Newark Public Schools and proposing solutions for them. That is where we're working on currently, and we expect and anticipate that reporting to be out within the next month.
Thank you so much for that overview. And Brenda, can you tell us about the Secondary Parent Council?
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Brenda Scott. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, as well as a whole many certifications around special education. What we have been doing in the Secondary Parent Council, or really what we do, is we work with parents from in the high school that have issues. That issue can be anything that they're struggling with in terms of providing and getting the proper education for their children in the high schools. The last 4 years, we have been, as a specialized topic, we have been working around the transition of special education children, because we were finding out that none of the children, most of the children, I shouldn't say none, I'd say 98% of the children were leaving high school without a plan. That plan should have been implemented as according to law by no less than the 9th grade. And we had really never done it in the district to satisfaction of the children that graduated as well as the parents. We're also looking at equity in the schools. We're looking at the teacher shortages. So we are right now looking at all things that are impactful upon students and their parents.
Thank you so much for that. And if you don't mind, Brenda, actually continuing by talking about a little bit more in depth of some of those issues you highlighted in terms of, right, what are some of the challenges and or strengths that you see with special education at the Newark Board of Ed?
Well, 4 years ago, when we really started to focus in, and I want to say put a little pressure on the district and the department is we found out no one had really been trained in the district to prepare students for transition. Their idea of transition was simply having the parents go down to DVR, which is a division of vocational rehab, some of them, and pretty much that was it. They didn't have a plan if they wanted to go to college or go to work or try work trials or anything else. And I'm happy to say one major victory we've had is that most of the case managers have now gone to Rutgers where they train individuals around job training, job transitioning, and many other, how to do a plan for transition for students. So they've sent, I want to say 50% of their staff now have gotten trained around that. So that was one of the success we saw out of that. They've also started to include partnerships where children can get training during the year, like Spectrum for Living and other companies. They have partnership with Walmart and Sea Caucus and other things to begin to get that ball rolling, although that is not what everybody wants to do, but we wanted them to move. So they have been moving in the last 2 years to get some of this done. The other thing that we really wanted was expansion to all the schools, to work with all the children that are in special ed to get a transition plan. They have not done that. They only have focused on children that are autistic in a couple of the high schools. So before the school year ended, we did get some promises from them to include other schools. And our other concern was that our case managers and departments didn't really know how to do job training or give our children exposure to job training. And one case I'm going to say we've been very successful with, there was a young lady that wanted to do sign language. Now you can't really look on TV or politicians, they all have sign language interpreters. So we pushed and made the school, and I'm going to say we made the school find a school that she could go to and learn this. And she was accepted on the dean's list also at Montclair State College. So we have shown the district that if you do your job and do it well and train the people to look out for the resources, that can be successful. But we still have a long way to go.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Safir, same question. What, from the perspective of CPAC, do you see as challenges, but also strengths of special education at the district?
So there certainly are a few strengths that are noteworthy at best. I think to start is the dedicated special education staff that is available. Of course, staffing remains a challenge both within the district and elsewhere across the country. But Newark Board of Education does have a team of dedicated special education professionals who are committed to supporting students with disabilities. They also are working toward, as you've also mentioned in response to the findings related to IEPs, they are working toward formalizing and standardizing that process across the district so that they have better guardrails and controls in place to make sure that they are compliant with regulatory obligations in the area. There's also the benefit of having access to supportive services. Special education students in Newark, they do have access to a range of support services like therapy, which today, however, are still oftentimes outsourced, inclusive of things like speech therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, and even assistive technology. But these services do aim to address specific learning and behavioral or developmental challenges that these students are facing. That said, there are some notable weaknesses or challenges that exist that are worth noting. There are certainly resource limitations. Like many public school systems, Newark Board of Education is no different in that they face resource limitations that can impact the quality and availability of the services that are provided. There's also insufficient funding, staffing shortages, limited access to specialized programs or therapies that are innovative or on the cutting edge that are used elsewhere in the industry. There's a level of inadequacy in training and professional development. There's some gaps there that certainly can be filled. There are clearly disparities in special education services and how they are provided around the district. And that's going to be one area that we touch on as we continue to go through today's session. But those disparities in the provision of special education services exist within the district, and they are often influenced by factors such as race, socioeconomic status, and with such a large city like ours, your geographic location also plays a role. And it results in unequal access to resources and support, and even the quality of services that are provided. One big area that remains a challenge and has been something that we've brought to the forefront as an organization and have been advocating for is inclusion and transition, post-secondary school transition specifically, but inclusion has and always still remains a challenge for the district. Even when you gave the introduction, Dr. Owens, about how there are programs available, specialized programs specifically for students in one or a few different locations, that is oftentimes absent of inclusion. Inclusion really should be the goal wherever possible, of course, respecting least restrictive environment for the student, which can change by definition on an individual case-by-case basis. But inclusion really should be pushed a bit more. Students with disabilities, like every other student, have similar goals. They have similar ways of enjoying themselves, being entertained, and they all have social requirements, social needs. And so socialization is not happening as much as it should. And that benefits both students with disabilities and those who are typical learners. Because when you allow those students to socialize one with another without dividing them geographically or even based on different rooms within a single building, you give both sets of students skills and abilities, both to empathize, to garner respect, and to really understand how it is to live in a world where you are not alone with your kind and those with similar neurodevelopmental or educational acumen. And so it's important that inclusion be emphasized and more widespread in order to address the disparities that exist as a result.
So I want to thank both of you for giving us that overview of the state of special education at the Newark Board of Education. It's important that, we know this general information to understand, what we need to continue to fight for our children. So I do want to bring Nancy up to talk about a particular case that's occurring right now within the school district. And so before I kind of ask her to talk about this case, I did want to read out the mission of the NAACP because I feel there are many people who are not familiar, and also because of the fact that it's recently been updated. So the mission of the NAACP is to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that expand human and civil rights, eliminate discrimination, and accelerate the well-being, education, and economic security of Black people and all persons of color. So with that being said, one of the things that we do is we help to advocate on behalf of those who feel that their rights, they have been discriminated against, their rights have been taken away, they've been treated unjustly or unfairly. And so we actually had a family within the district who turned to us to see what it is that we can do to help in this situation. And so Nancy Erica Smith is the attorney for this family. So even though they have gone to the extent of filing a lawsuit against the district, they're still right concerned about repercussions and speaking out. And so the advocacy plan in this case looks like, how do we raise up the issue of special education and anti-Black racism, bullying, and what's occurring at the intersection of those three? And that's a main reason why we're having this conversation tonight. But I did want to bring Nancy up, and Nancy, can you tell us, just kind of give us an overview of this complaint, what has occurred, and then we'll talk a little bit about the process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Owens. My client was 6 years old in September of 2018. He was put into a class of not inclusion, 12 children who all had special needs. They had just built a brand new, beautiful school called the Oliver Street School. This particular class, however, was in the old dilapidated building with lead pipes and very, very dilapidated building. The new school had an on-site principal. The old school had no on-site principal. The principal at the new school was supposed to also look over this school. The new school, this school is 3.9% Black students in Newark, New Jersey. My client is the only Black student in this classroom. The staff, according to a deposition I took of the social worker, was predominantly non-Black, and she described racism occurring every day towards students, including my client and fellow staff members. The principal testified under oath that the old school was a dumping grounds for teachers who were sitting in central office because they had performance problems. And the central office didn't want to keep paying them. So they put them in this old school, and they put them with these most vulnerable children. Not surprisingly, let me tell you who my client was in September when his IEP was done. It was updated January 2019. KJ is a sweet and charming child. He loves to be praised for his good behavior and loves attention from adults. He developed friendships and likes to share the center time with children. He is very good at following rules. That's January of 2019. In 2019, an older, bigger 8-year-old student joined the class and was on the same bus as my client. And my client early on began complaining about being bullied. His mother, an amazing woman, an incredible advocate for her son, complained to the school. Nothing happened. No HIB, harassment, intimidation, and bullying complaint, no investigation. When he came home with a black eye, she complained and was concerned and asked what was going on. No investigation, no HIB form. We found out today in a deposition, there was no HIB qualified specialist at this school. The school with the most vulnerable children, none. So eventually we learned that on April 5th of 2019, the same child that was bullying our client, my client became the opposite of charming, happy, loves adults, follow rules. He wouldn't get off the bus. He was afraid to walk into the building. He started wetting himself because he was afraid to go to the bathroom. On one occasion, he was missing for 40 minutes because he was defecating behind a dumpster on the school grounds because he was afraid to go to the bathroom. His mother tried so hard with everyone to get attention, saying something's wrong at school because he doesn't do this behavior at home. And he was great. Look at your own IEP. Look what you're saying about him. It turns out that on April 5th, the young boy who was bullying, and probably now we know much worse to my client, grabbed another student's genitals hardly until the other child began crying. Again, no investigation. DCPP was never called. even for him, I mean, the perpetrators obviously exhibiting behavior that should be addressed for him, but no investigation, a separate victim from my client. 6 weeks later, my client went to now let me say, his IEP says he's supposed to have a one-on-one aide. He did not. His IEP said he was supposed to have speech. He was supposed to have many services that they admit in writing he didn't have, although they lied to his mother when she kept saying, how is this happening if he has a one-on-one aide? In the classroom, the same individual who exhibited sexual assault 6 weeks earlier forced my client to perform oral sex on him, a 6-year-old on an 8-year-old. He told, and the process is mind-boggling. The social worker and nurse decided to put the two in a room together, followed no protocols for how you would treat him, didn't call his mother for 2.5 hours, didn't even address it for more than an hour. And I figured out that's because the nurse was taking her lunch. This little 6-year-old is sitting in the hallway, having revealed this and drawn a picture of it. It happened in the classroom because this special ed classroom had a secret corner. And he explained that the perpetrator made him go in this corner. They lied and said that he had a one-on-one aide, and then in writing admitted, oh, he hasn't had an aide since February. And throughout leading up to this assault, my client had asked for the child's study team to get involved. They literally ignored her. Constant pleas, ignored. The principal refused to meet with her. And he had really nothing to do with this school because this was a leaderless school where they dumped these children. No HIB on site. So they kept saying to my client's mother, you have to pick him up because he started acting out, saying he wanted to die, taking scissors and say he wanted to kill somebody. And they said to her, your child's got a problem. You have to take him to crisis. Crisis would say it's not emergent, and he would miss 8 days of school. She lost her job. They made her pick him up so many times during the same time that they're refusing to talk to her about what's happening to him. Then they sent her a form that said they were going to transfer the perpetrator. That was a lie. They now admit they did not transfer the perpetrator. Instead, he refused to go to school, and his mother is not going to make him go to school in the same classroom with his assaulter. So they started threatening his mother that they were going to charge her for not sending her 6-year-old to school in the same classroom with the child who sexually assaulted him. It's an unbelievable story of callous disregard. The social worker testified under oath that he was treated differently because he's Black in a predominantly non-Black school, that they just didn't care. There was no sense of urgency, and that she finally told them, I'm not going to call this woman and yell at her for not bringing her son back to a school where he's being abused. It's an extraordinary story. And as Mr. Jenkins pointed out, it's race, location, and inclusion all together, resulting in a stunning lack of equity and caring. It's a sad, sad story, and we hope to use it to change for many students.
Thank you, Nancy. The details of this narrative of the complaint certainly are horrendous, and no one would want to even think that this is happening to any child in any school district anywhere. However, we know that these things do occur, and I appreciate you, talking a little bit about the process of how these sort of details are uncovered. And so certainly you're still awaiting your day in court, as you will, to be able to, get a resolution. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that. Like, what is your client looking for in terms of an outcome?
Well, in the materials that you gave tonight is this wonderful lawsuit that hopes to end segregation. We need to end segregation in the state, and hopefully that ruling is going to come out any day, but there's segregation in Newark. How is it possible that this brand new, beautiful school has 3.9% Black students? And the staff is predominantly non-Black. So we support all efforts to end segregation. We want full disclosure of how HIB claims are handled, because we don't believe that they're being even brought, that you're supposed to be able to verbally make a complaint of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and sexual harassment is a form of bullying. It's even in their own policies. And we don't even believe that those claims are being made or investigated. And we know that because 6 weeks earlier, there was a sexual assault from the same student that was never elevated in any way to HIB. And every school deserves an HIB specialist. We want to end to dumping children with special needs in the worst schools with the underperforming staff without adequate inclusion goals. This is a child who clearly his mother believed, although he has an autism diagnosis, autism is a spectrum, and you can tell from the description of this young child that this was at 6, a child that clearly could have had some inclusion. But the decision was to dump these kids in one classroom in a dilapidated school with no principal, no HIB, no caring. We want this student to be transferred to an appropriate placement. He's terrified in the Newark schools right now. His mother fears retribution. She wants him to get the best possible services. We want the people who treated him so callously not to be around children anymore. And we want him compensated for the years of therapy he's going to have to go through. He's very damaged, and his mother is an incredible woman and advocate for him. And she's a single mother. Her husband was murdered while she was pregnant. They've never found his murderer. She's just an amazing, amazing woman. I'm so proud to represent her.
And something that I'm thinking about, and having been a teacher in the district and, develop relationships with students, you hear a lot of traumatic stories. And it is, right, a result of the structural conditions of our society, again, turning back to racism, to discrimination. And it's why, as the NAACP, we fight and struggle to eliminate all of these inequalities and inequities, because without doing that, we're not really all going to be able to fully live our humanity. So I am seeing things pop up in the chat. I'm not gonna lie, I'm doing my best just to kind of keep things on track. So it's not that I'm ignoring, but it's just a lot going on at once. But I will say there seems to be some folks missed when you said HIB. So again, I'll just repeat that: harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And this is a state level policy that all school districts also have to adopt their own policy. And so I want to bring Safia and Brenda back into the conversation to talk a little further about discrimination and provide your comments about them, about this topic. But before we do that, I think one thing we might have missed from the overview of the complaint and the process is, right, you mentioned, Nancy, that these events occurred in 2019,
Yes.
right, early 2019, and we are
Yes.
in late 2023.
Yes.
How is it that this case is still pending, if you will? There, no resolution has occurred.
This case was filed in 20, and nothing really happened in the court system because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We have an incredible judge shortage going on right now, so it's very hard to get things moving even post-COVID. The Newark Board of Education drags their feet regarding discovery, getting us information that we're entitled to, providing people for discovery. They changed counsel. Originally, their counsel presented me with like 15 pages of documents and said, that's all we have, which was unbelievable. Now I think we're up to about, I don't know, 5,000 documents. So they're trickling in our discovery every day. I mean, we just learned about the prior assault 6 weeks earlier. We learned that in the last 2 weeks. That's how things have been hidden from us since 2020. But we are moving forward. We are filing motions. We have a good and thoughtful judge in Newark, but every judge is overwhelmed. You wait months for a decision on motions. But we will be ready to try this case in the spring, I hope.
Thank you. And I think that that points to other work as NAACP that we do, right? The civic engagement and political action is so important to be involved in, to pay attention to, because whether it's voting, it's advocacy, it's attending local meetings, whatever the case may be, submitting, calling your elected officials, all of this has an impact. Folks probably have seen in the news about having a judge shortage. All of these things are interrelated, right?
Yeah.
So not only can people, I know I saw a headline about folks not being able to get divorced, right? So not only are folks not able to get divorced, but we also have children literally suffering in our school district because we're not able to reach these sort of decisions about what should happen next for special education, and I'm sure in other aspects of education as well. So thank you again for that information, Nancy, and continuing to push on behalf of your client, and also to your point about what outcomes you're looking for on behalf of all children in the district. So I want to shift again to talking about discrimination and just have like a conversation to wrap us up. So unconscious bias, or also known as implicit bias, right, is a learned assumption, belief, or attitude that exists in the subconscious, right? And then these attitudes affect the way that individuals feel and think about others around them. So paragraph 72 of the complaint reads, defendant schools upper level managers treated SB, and therefore plaintiff KJ, with racist disrespect and indifference, and no concern for him because he was disabled, and concealed from her, the client's mother, their intentional refusal to comply with plaintiff KJ's IEP. So with information like that, right, being a part of the narrative of this complaint, like any of these upper level managers could easily say, well, it wasn't about KJ's race. I'm not racist. What do you have to say about the role? And we can start with Brenda. What do you have to say about the role that unconscious or implicit bias plays in public education when it comes to Black children, with children with special needs, and then children at these intersections?
Well, it plays a tremendous role. Just not even understanding cultural differences, understanding what different backgrounds mean. And because in the Newark public school system, we have varying backgrounds and cultural differences. So the way you should treat one based on their background versus another is never looked at. We've had many interactions with parents that are, Haitian or African, and as well as African American and other cultures that never even get any kind of understanding about what they're bringing to the classroom with parents. So we know that this is a major problem in MPS. When put together in IEPs, they, once again, when we're looking at the secondary part, it's not considered at all. I gave the example earlier of kids getting work opportunities, but they want to send them all to Walmart pushing a cart. And our people can do way more than that. So even expanding beyond the opportunities for, what children that are Black and brown can do, it's not even emphasized in our schools. And we have worked collectively, and I know CPAC has too, to make sure opportunities are for everyone, not just those that are selected or those that are liked or implicit bias, as you're talking about, it relates to all children and parents, as well as the wonderful staff that works, because they can't envision anything for our children because of the color they see. So it definitely is happening. We push against it all the time when we have meetings with special education higher ups. We make sure that we let them know that, you know, this is not acceptable. And we push against that a lot, which is how the story I gave about the young lady going to college, because no one at her school thought that she was able to go sit on a dean's list, you know, with the challenges that she had, and with the opportunity to even go to college. They didn't even see her as being able to go to college. And we use that as an example because we followed her from the 7th grade at a school, and then tried to make sure that she got into a school that would support her dream. And because some of the other schools that wanted to take her would not have been a good placement. So as Nancy indicated, you have to empower the parent to stand tall and push against the system. And that's what we did. So following this young lady from the 7th grade to her actually graduating last year was quite a challenge, but it also, at the end of the year, it also had other parents come up to us and say, I want to learn to be strong, because when you come from another culture too, you think what a teacher says is correct. You think what a principal says is correct. You're not even thinking that they're looking at your Black and brown skin and just are not willing to vision for your child what you had as a vision. So, you know, some of it is, I wanted to, most of it is just is total bias, which is why we've pushed a lot for the case managers and child study team to get trained at Rutgers. I mean, it was overwhelming to us to even learn that the district didn't even know there was training available for free for their staff. You know, that was like unbelievable, but we pushed, and we will continue to push this year for more training, because you cannot deal well with students with special abilities unless you get beyond your own self, who may not, you yourself may not have just finished high school and never had any dream beyond that. So you can't envision somebody else dreaming. So that's how we see that.
Thank you. And thank you again for sharing that story about that young woman, and for all of the fight and struggle that Secondary Parent Council has been pushing through all these years. I know there are many dedicated members of the organization, but I'd be remiss without lifting up the name of Miss Wilhelmina Holder, who served in leadership positions for many, many years in that organization. So just really appreciative that you and others have continued to, do the work, because it's a very important organization. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. We try, we really work hard. We try on it, with the support of
I
the
know.
NAACP and all the other organizations. We definitely, the fight is real, for real.
Yes, it is. Safir, your thoughts and observations around unconscious or implicit bias in the district?
Yeah, thank you so much, all of you. And really, I want to start by first acknowledging the fact that during the entirety of the segment, where we were hearing about the details of this case from Nancy, I literally was sitting here fighting back tears because of the fact that the gravity of this situation is far beyond comprehension. We're not just talking about negligence that happened by happenstance. We're talking about willful neglect. And more importantly, what we're talking about goes beyond negligence and the inability to meet the needs of a student. We are talking about something that is criminal. In New Jersey, you have, as a professional, a duty to inform. Whenever it is that you have either encountered, witnessed, or have received information related to these types of issues, you have a duty to inform those in charge, moreover, the parents, so that something can be done. The unwillingness or perhaps the concealment by these individuals not to inform those who were required to be informed about these circumstances have a big price to pay. And literally there's blood on their hands. I mean, when we're talking about implicit bias, I'll get to your question. I do apologize. Implicit bias is shaped by societal attitudes. It's shaped by media portrayals, personal experiences, and so much more. But it's reinforced by inaction. Some of the fallouts or the results of implicit bias are dehumanization and adultification. Studies show that Black children, particularly boys, are often seen as much older and less innocent than their non-Black peers. And this is a phenomenon called adultification bias. So implicit bias is not just based on your race, but it's at that foundation that other biases take root. Now, this is linked to the dehumanization that I just mentioned, where Black students, Black individuals are denied the basic traits and emotions associated with being a human being. And that includes vulnerability, the need for protection. And this superhumanization bias can also come into play as a result. Some other results of implicit bias in education in particular is stereotyping and criminalization. Based on what we've heard thus far, it seems that it was easy for staff members and those in charge to highlight when it was that they observed actions of JB that they thought were troubling, that they thought were criminal. They inaccurately portrayed this young man as a criminal, and that made him appear as dangerous and gave them the justification needed to continue to behave in a manner that was uncaring and unprotecting. That leads to the presumption of guilt. And that's where these individuals, these Black individuals, particularly males again, are assumed to be guilty or more likely to commit crimes. So I understand they might not believe they're racist. They might not see that they are acting in a way that is racist. But what they are doing is upholding the very pillars of systemic racism. These biases are not just individual, they are embedded in our systems, in our institutions, across our society, and it's no different in Newark. And that's part of the problem. Because we are here and it's majority, quote, minority or non-majority individuals in our city, we assume and accept the idea that racism doesn't exist, that bias doesn't exist, and that's just not the case. In our education system, there are disciplinary practices that are disproportionately targeting Black students, reinforced by the perception that Black children are problematic or guilty. So it is critically important that we begin to undo these biases, these systems that support these biases and really are entirely harmful and unjust. And the first way that we do that is desegregation. Segregation is the vehicle that upholds anti-Black racism and implicit bias. That segregation is deeply rooted in the way that we are structured as an education system here in Newark Public Schools. And when segregation exists, it makes it both possible and easy, as well as inherent, to have disproportionate and inequitable allocation of funds, of resources. You'll find that some schools have the best staff, the most qualified teachers, others are all but left for dead. This is the recipe for the disaster that we're hearing about. It's not only criminal, it's not only sad, but it gives us the motivation necessary to take action where it's needed most. And that begins today.
So much.
Sure.
I almost don't want to give Nancy like a minute, some change. We do have to wrap up to just provide some closing words. But Safir, I mean, your point was so strongly made. And I just really appreciate you as well, and your wife, Anfal, and your entire family, and the work that you've been doing through CPAC and in other areas to, make sure that our children are protected. So thank you. Nancy, if you don't mind just having the last word, like I said, about a minute or so. I know that's kind of quick, but just in terms of, your the field of law that you mainly practice. I mean, if you want to give some comments around that, or just whatever closing statement you want to make around this case.
I'm a civil rights lawyer for 42 years. I've had the pleasure of knowing Rick Robinson for many years. We've worked together on cases together, trying to battle racism in corporate America, in our government, and in our schools. And I just want to say what Mr. Jenkins said. That's what I wanted. What he said was so profound and so beautiful that I can't say anything more profound than his analysis, which is so perfectly stated, so beautiful and so sad, but except for the part of we got to get working.
Thank you. And I think that's a wonderful segue into wrapping up. So if you are facing discrimination, if you are having issues in your school, or even just wanting to get involved and more informed, please become a member of an organization. We have CPAC here presenting, we have Secondary Parent Council presenting. Of course, this is the general meeting of the Newark branch of the NAACP. Any of these organizations would be more than happy to welcome you into becoming a member. And we're also advocacy organizations. When it comes to special education, STAN is another advocacy organization. And if you think you need to escalate to the route of having an attorney, well, you see, Nancy Erica Smith is here. And also Education Law Center is another place to turn to. So please make sure that you recognize all of these different avenues to be able to have your voice heard. And it shouldn't always necessarily be about when an issue arises, but being proactive and becoming informed and being in action with other people in this great city of Newark. So again, I want to thank all three of our guest speakers. Really appreciate your time, your thoughts, and your commitment to this work. And we are going to look to get a resolution not only for KJ, but also for all the children in the district, so that they do not need to face any sort of any type of discrimination. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that the end of the meeting? Hello?
Thank you, Lee, Dr. Owens, for leading the Education Committee and for bringing this to the attention. This is the work that we do, and it's not always popular or pretty, but we must have the courage to stand for our children. We must have the courage. If we're going to make things different, we have to have the courage to reveal, to talk about, to bring up uncomfortable situations so that there is a better understanding. Now, based on our rocky start with the meeting, I am only going to ask three of our committee chairs to report out, because it's in connection with the information that you just received. And so I would ask our civic engagement chairperson, Ali McBride, to give us some information, share some information with us about upcoming activities that are being conducted by that committee.
Good evening to everyone. I'll just go real quick. Just for the Civic Engagement Committee, we're going to cancel the meeting that we were going to have for Monday. We've been meeting like twice a week, trying to prepare for the forms for the candidates that are up for election. And we would ask that the committee, and not just the committee, but everyone on the call, all the members, to tune in on September the 18th and ask the members tune into a Zoom call that is going to be given by the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, the community engagement team. It's called First Standing in Solidarity, event of the season, Democracy, a User's Guide, featuring a panel that includes our president, Deborah Smith Gregory, and the conversation will include valuable information to use in our committee's voter outreach efforts. Also watch the film on YouTube, Suppressed and Sabotaged. It's called Suppressed and Sabotage, the Fight to Vote. It's a new documentary exposing the various tactics being used to restrict voting rights. We're also trying to firm up the dates. We were going to do the commissioners debate the same time as the voter registration day, but we're gonna move that. We spoke with the superintendent of the Essex County schools, Essex County high schools, about trying to firm up the date for those forums. We're gonna probably have 3 forums in October. So please continue to tune in for that. That's tentative, but we've already talked with him. It looks good that we're going to have that. And again, we're going to always need your help, and we're going to always need folks to engage and to get the word out. So thank you.
Thank you. And the other committee is the Health Committee, chaired by Tamia Wilson, who has some information about Medicare. You're speaking, but you're on mute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone who is on. I would like to welcome all the members who are interested in the Health Committee to join us, where our meetings will now be on every second Tuesday of each month at 6:30. You can always email if you're interested at health1.newark.naacp.com. We are going to be working hard and partnering with the state of Health and Human Services to give information on Medicaid redeterminations. I'm going to send a link in the chat on the Medicaid toolkit. As you know, now COVID has quote unquote ended. Health and Human Services in the state of New Jersey are going to be starting redeterminations for Medicaid so that everyone in the community who has Medicaid or will need Medicaid can keep their benefits or obtain benefits. The Medicaid toolkit will be shared in the chat so that you can see and pass that along to all you know, okay? And we will have a partner from New Jersey's Department of Health and Human Services speak to us in the near future about that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And our Freedom Fund Committee chairperson is also our Religious Affairs chairperson, Judith Favors.
Good evening, everyone. The Religious Affairs Committee, we meet the second Monday of every month at 7:30 via Zoom. If you're interested, please give the branch a call at 973-624-6400, and we can provide you with the Zoom link and the number. We can give you the number to dial in, and to join us. And that's the second Monday of every month. Also, the Religious Affairs Committee meet every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. And we have a prayer line, intercessory prayer line every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. And it's a dial-in number to join us. And I can provide that number or dial 973-624-6400 to get that information as well. The Freedom Fund, we have an exciting event coming up on Saturday, September the 30th at 11 to 3 o'clock p.m. It will be our 109th Freedom Fund Gala taking place at the Terrace Ballroom in the wonderful city of Newark. We have 6 dynamic individuals, which is our community champion, that will be honored on that day. And we're excited and we look forward to you joining us. You still have time to place an ad. Cutoff deadline is tomorrow for ads. Ticket prices is $100. Feel free to meet Madam President at the office tomorrow between 5 and 7 to pick up your ticket, which is $100. If you purchase at the door, it will be $125. But if you would like additional information, you can send the email or call the office. The email for Freedom Fund Newark @gmail.com. Number to the office, 973-624-6400. We're still looking for your support. Tickets are still available for you to join us. And if you're not available to attend, sponsor a young person or a senior to join us. Again, you can still have time. You still have time to purchase an ad. And we look forward to you joining us for 109th Freedom Fund Lunch Gala, Terrace Ballroom. God bless everyone.
Thank you, Judith. So just to be sure that everyone understands, we are all volunteers. And we are committed to this work. We need more people. We need to organize more people to come and participate in this work. It is not a solitary or a group or a clique of people who are exclusive. We need the community to come on board. We welcome other organizations to work in a collaborative effort. We have a lot of issues that are unfinished. And when we think about those who have gone on before us and the sacrifices that have been made, the blood that has been spilled, we have a responsibility. We know that the work is not done, it's not complete. So we have a responsibility to carry that baton, to carry on. Before we close, there is an announcement that I would like to make
Madam President,
from one of our, yes.
can the Education Committee, before you close?
Oh, okay,
report?
I'll circle back. I'll circle back. You all did such, well, you did such great work that I was just like, okay, they're done. But what I would like to say in connection with one of our partners, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, they have been pushing for the voting age to be lowered to 16 so that 16-year-olds can vote in school board elections. Clearly, based on what you've heard tonight, there is merit in that. And so on October, no, there's going to be a first vote that's scheduled for Wednesday, October 4th at 12:30 p.m. At the City Council chambers. And the ordinance will be read and a first vote will be taken. The second vote will be taken on Wednesday, October 18th at 6:30. This is to lower the voting age to 16-year-olds for the school board election, because we need for young people to have a sense of self-determination and to weigh in on people who are going to be the leaders of the Board of Education, because the Board of Education has a very crucial role to play in the education of our young people. And so if you can come out either October 4th for the first vote, which is scheduled at 12:30 p.m., or October 18th for the final vote at 6:30. And when you come, bring someone, bring a young person that this might have an impact on. Please spread the word to the young people that you come into contact with, so that they will be aware that the thought is even happening. We have hashed through what it might look like. We want to be sure that young people are empowered, not only just to vote, but to also understand the importance of voting. And with that, you're aware that October 17th is the last day to register to vote. And it would be, so the students and young people that are around you who will be 18 by October 17th, please encourage them to register to vote. I'm going to turn it over to the education chair.
And just a tweak on that. So 18 by election day. So even if they're not 18 on October 17th, they can register as long as they'll be 18 by the actual date of the election.
November
So
7th. Thank you.
November, say that again?
November 7th is the election day.
7th. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
That's late. Okay, well, just very quickly, the Education Committee meets on the 4th Wednesdays of the month at 5:30 to 6:30 on Zoom. And so all are welcome to attend our meeting and be a part of the conversations and the action plans. We can be reached at education.newarknaacp@gmail.com. And then also just through Facebook or social media or the main website. However you get to us, just get to us. And in terms of report or activities, I just wanted to announce that the education workshop at the New Jersey State Conference NAACP convention, which is held the weekend of October 14th and 15th. And you can check out the state conference's website in order to register to be able to attend. There'll be many different workshops and information and advocacy plans. But in terms of the education workshop, we will be talking about school desegregation. There is a case pending in the New Jersey court system right now regarding school segregation in the state of New Jersey. So that will be our workshop. So definitely would like to see current members and also even general public, I believe, can register and attend. And hopefully you'll also become a member of the NACP. Thank you.
Thank you. And to what Leah is saying, our website is www.naacpnewark.org. And we have a listing of the meetings, the committees, the active committees, the meetings, the time and the date where they meet. We encourage you. We need you to come on board. You see the work that we're doing. It's not, it's important, and it's not going to go away. Our call to action is to go to Board of Education meetings, to stay up on what is happening in the field of education, but also in the field of criminal justice, health, housing, economic development, all of that. We need all hands on deck. It's not enough for us to complain and talk to each other about what's not happening, what could be happening, and what should be happening. We can make a difference if we pool our resources, come together in a collective, and work toward making our community better. And so I would like for a Religious Affairs Chairperson to come back and to have a closing prayer.
Amen, everyone. Let us pray. Most gracious God, we come to say thank you. We thank you for this meeting. We thank you for the presenters that was presented on tonight. And we pray that everyone receive something. And please take the opportunity to share the information that you received on tonight. Share the information through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just share, continue to share, and continue to bless the NAACP as we continue to fight the fight and continue to be freedom fighters and continue to bless everyone on this line as we depart from this line, but never from the presence of our God. Amen, amen, amen.
Thank you, Elder Favors, and we just continue to work and to get better. Have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.